So today I will tell you two stories about two different buildings that had an important role in the history of economics in the UK. One of them is the Senate House. This building played an interesting role in Second World War and the economic ideas during the post-war period. And the other one, well, Drayton House, is about famous economists that have shaped modern economic research. Let me start with the Senate House. Before the establishment of the British welfare system, one of its founding fathers, William Beveridge, was made the Vice-Chancellor of the University of London. Back then, he was so determined to make University of London a leading university in the world that he convinced the Rockefeller Foundation to donate £400,000. Doesn't sound like a big deal, right? Well, that's actually £25 million in today's money, accounting for inflation. With this great sum of money, the Senate House was built as an institution of University of London. During the Second World War, this building became the Ministry of Information, a government department in charge of censorship and propaganda during the Second World War. Pretty dark, right? Well, actually, George Orwell's wife, Ellen Blair, worked there. And as you know, the Senate House later became the inspiration for the Ministry of Truth in Orwell's novel 1984. Also, it is in this building where they came up with the famous "Keep Calm and Carry On" slogan, and they distributed 2.45 million posters to raise the morale of the British people in preparation for the war. Ironically, this building was stricken by Nazi Blitz attacks years later. In 1942, Beveridge outlined his plans for social insurance in the Senate House, and subsequently, in the post-war government, Attlee implemented many of the policies outlined by the famous Beveridge Report, including the National Insurance Act and the NHS Act, both of which are the foundation of the British welfare state. This set of economic policies also gave place to the booming post-war economy, and the economic inequality reduced dramatically as the UK middle class built up. However, following the economic stagnation of the 70s, many people started to question the post-war model, and this culminated in the election of Margaret Thatcher, who introduced controversial policies of privatization, deregulations, and cutting taxes for the rich. And of course, this blew up the inequality. For example, the Gini coefficient went from 0.25 to 0.34 in just 10 years. Worried about this, an economist named Toni Atkinson pioneered the modern inequality studies. Now, Toni Atkinson brings us to our second location today, Drayton House. But why? Well, some of the Atkinson's earliest works were published while he was the professor of political economy at UCL. In fact, he was the head of the department at some point as well. One aspect of his work was inequality measurement. Back then, he became so dissatisfied with the Gini coefficient that he even came up with its own Atkinson index. Why? Well, let's imagine an unequal society where parent income affects child mortality, illiteracy, and intergenerational poverty. What do you think is more appropriate? An index that measures current inequality, or one that measures the current inequality adjusted for its potential to cause even greater inequality? Well, the Gini coefficient only measures the current inequality, and this is why the Atkinson index puts more weight to the lower end of the income spectrum. Apart from this, he contributed a lot to policy making. For example, he was the first one to build a computer model to analyze a British budget, and with his result, he helped the Labour Party to identify the distributional effects of the 1988 budget, which reduced the top tax rate for the wealthiest from 60% to 40%. What's more, he was one of the first economists who managed to measure the income of the top 1% in the Western countries through data on tax return. Without his research, we wouldn't actually have the phrase top 1%. As a consequence, a new generation of economists were inspired by his work, for example Piketty, Sayers, and Zuckerman. And in a poetic way to end his life full of achievement, he wrote his last book, Inequality, What Can Be Done, in which he outlined some policy solutions. Undoubtedly, his research has shifted our focus to inequality studies. And the IFS Drayton Review is one of the projects continuing this stream of inequality studies. This 5 years study of inequality featuring economists such as Richard Blandel, Imran Rasool, and Angus Deaton will dig deeper into the causes and solutions for inequality. Both of our characters today, Beverage and Atkinson, have given life to Senate House and Drayton House. Despite living in different time periods and different economies, both have influenced the modern British economic research, and of course, economic policies that affect us day by day. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you want to discover more about inequality studies, I have some recommended sources for you. For example, Bread for All by Chris Renwick tells this inspiring story of how the welfare state was founded. And for the fans of mystery genre, we have something for you as well. You should read this book called The Ministry of Truth. And if you are more of a listener than a reader, then I suggest you watch this presentation given by Toni Atkinson on the solutions for inequality. All the links will be down in the description box, and if you like this video, please leave a like and check some of our other videos.